Hi, this is Rubaz Khan. Welcome to lecture 3.2. In this lecture, we are going to learn how variables work in inheritance. So let's get started. So before moving to the main topic, let's do a little recall of variables. So in this lecture, we are going to look at three types of variables: instance variables, class variables, and local variables. So what are instance variables? Instance variables কি জিনিস? Instance variables are variables that belong to the object. Okay, and they are declared by using the self variable, which is basically the object reference dot variable name. For example, self.x equals 100. So if a class has an instance variable x and we create 10 instances or 10 objects of that class, each object will have its own instance variable x, and there will be no connection between them. So this is not a new concept. This is just recalling what we already know. So if this is a class, and we have an instance variable called x, if I create 10, 100, as many instances or objects I want, let's say I create 3 objects. Okay, so let's say O1, O2, and O3. All these 3 objects will have the variable x, and these variables belong to this object individually. Okay, তার মানে হচ্ছে এই x ভ্যারিয়েবলটা এই অবজেক্টের অধীনে, এই x ভ্যারিয়েবলটা এই অবজেক্টের অধীনে, এবং এই x টা এই অবজেক্টের অধীনে। এদের মাঝে কোনো কানেকশন নাই। O1.x points to this one, O2.x points to this one, and similarly O3.x points to this one. Now let's look at class variables. Class variables are created when a class is written, okay, and is associated with the class. This class variables are associated with the class. And class variables are created when a class is written. It doesn't matter if I create an object or not. It means আমি যদি একটা class লিখি, class student, তখনই, আর এখানে যদি আমার একটা object class variable থাকে, by the way, class variable declare করার technique হচ্ছে, or rule হচ্ছে, the variable must be outside any method or constructor. Okay, আমরা instance variables এর বেলায় দেখেছি আমরা যে এই instance variable x টা তৈরি করেছিলাম, it was created inside a constructor. আমরা একটা instance variable মেথডের ভিতরে তৈরি করতে পারি, কিন্তু কখনো বাইরে তৈরি করতে পারি না। কিন্তু একটা ক্লাস ভ্যারিয়েবল সবসময় একটা মেথড অথবা একটা কনস্ট্রাক্টরের বাইরে তৈরি হবে। ফর এক্সাম্পল x equals 100, এবং একটা ক্লাস ভ্যারিয়েবল তৈরি করার সময় এটার আগে কোনো সেলফ লিখতে হয় না। So class student x equals to 100 means this x is a class variable that belongs to the student class. এবং ক্লাস ভ্যারিয়েবল তৈরি হয় যখন একটা ক্লাস লেখা হয়। সংক্ষেপে বলি, আমরা যখন অথবা পাইথন যখন একটা ক্লাস দেখে ইন্টারপ্রিট করার সময়, we know Python is an interpreter language. So একটা পাইথন ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ যখন একটা ক্লাস দেখে, তখন যেটা কি করে, টাইপ নামের একটা বিল্ট ইন ক্লাস আছে পাইথনের, যেটা অবজেক্ট তৈরি করে। টাইপ অবজেক্ট। এটা কিভাবে বুঝবো? আমরা জানি পাইথনের একটা বিল্ট ইন মেথড আছে, বিল্ট ইন ফাংশন আছে, নাম হচ্ছে টাইপ। সেই টাইপের মধ্যে যদি আমি স্টুডেন্ট অথবা একটা ক্লাসের নাম দেই এবং প্রিন্ট দেই, আমরা পাবো যে ক্লাস টাইপ। এখন একটা জিনিস খেয়াল রাখতে হবে, this class type and this type are not the same. This type is a built-in function that returns me the type of this element, and this type is the name of a class. Although they have the same name, but please make sure that you don't confuse yourself, okay? So every class we write, a type object is created, okay? And this class variable belongs to the type object, okay? So এই বিষয় নিয়ে আমার একটা আলাদা ভিডিও থাকবে, which I'll provide the link in the description box. So far, এতটুকু বুঝলেই হবে যে whenever we create a class or whenever we write a class, every class is an object of the built-in type class, and every class variable and class methods belong to the type object. Okay. Now let's go to the second point. Once the one class is written only once, of course, class is basically a design. So we design only once. Therefore, the class variable is created only once. And it has no connection with the number of objects created. For example, if I create multiple objects of the student class variable will still be 1 because this variable is associated with the class, not with the objects. Okay. And so, as I said before, it has no connection with the number of objects created. And all the objects of the class will point or access to one class variable. For example, I create three objects of the student class, O1, O2, and O3. All these objects will point to one class variable. Okay. Now, how a class variable is accessed? It is accessed using the class name dot variable name. So if the class is student and if the class variable is x, we write student dot x, the class's name dot the variable name. And then we have local variables. Local variables are created inside the methods or constructors. Method or constructor parameters are also local variables. So if I have a class student, if I have a method, these arguments or parameters are local variables. We can also create local variables like this. Inside the method, local variables can also be created inside a constructor. And while creating a local variable, we do not have to write self. Okay. Whenever we will see self.variable name, definitely this variable is an instance variable. Okay. The existence of the local variables they exist from when or where they are created until the end of the function or method or constructor. তার মানে হচ্ছে, let's say this method, এখানে method আছে, এখানে আরো লাইন আছে, এইখানে আমার y টা তৈরি হয়েছে, y এর এক্সিস্টেন্স হচ্ছে এই লাইন থেকে এই পর্যন্ত, এখানে মনে করলাম আমার মেথড শেষ। তো মেথডের বাইরে আমি y কে চিনি না, ঠিক আছে? এবং যেভাবে বলেছিলাম, they declare an access using just a name, no self or class's name. So if y is 100, if I print y, the output will be 100. So we simply write y. এখন আমরা আমাদের মূল বিষয়ে আসি, যে কিভাবে এই 3 রকম ভ্যারিয়েবলস আমার ইনহেরিটেন্সে কাজ করবে। সো এখানে আমার একটা ছোট একটা কোড আছে। ক্লাস প্যারেন্টে আমার একটা ক্লাস ভ্যারিয়েবল আছে x, which is 90. I have a constructor, and inside the constructor I am creating an instance variable with the value 100. There is a child class, and inside the child constructor I'm writing something called, or I'm creating another instance variable x with the value 999. Then I'm doing some work. Okay, so let's trace. Let's see what's happening. So we are creating a child object. So let that object be created inside inside the address AD, and there will be a parent portion and a child portion. And before creating the object, please make sure that you create a table, or create a column for the class variable x. Okay. In order to create a class variable, it is not required to create an object. Whenever we write a class variable is created. So x is created with the value 90. And as x is a class variable, so let's write over here class v, so that we understand x is a class variable. And let's say p, right? P over here, so that it means it belongs to the parent. So then I create the object. So as I'm creating the child object, the child constructor will run first. Inside the child constructor, I am creating an instance variable called x with the value 999. And then I'm calling the superclasses constructor. So from here, I'll jump to this line and then run the constructor. So over here, it seems that there is another instance variable created in the parent portion x with the value 100, right? I said it seems that a new instance variable is created inside the parent portion. Now, this concept is very important. An instance variable is created just once for one object. Okay. So remember, this entire is an object belonging to the child class. Okay. Inside the child class's object, there are two portions, a parent portion and a child portion. So inside the child constructor, there is an instance variable created with the name x and with the value 999. And when I jump to the parent constructor or parent portions constructor, I see that there is self.x equals 100. This line, so in this line, no new instance variable is created. You have to be very careful. Okay. In this line, no new instance variable is created. What's happening then? It is updating. So no new variable is created, so there will not be any column over here. But what's happening over here? this instance variable is getting updated. Remember, the name is instance variable. So the variable belongs to the instance. Instance is nothing but an object. How many objects did I create? One object. Okay. And these two variables have the same name. How come one object have two variables with one name? It's impossible, right? So self.x means this self is nothing but the object reference. This self is pointing to the child object. This self is also pointing at the child object. Therefore, when I write self.x equals 100, this only instance variable x is being replaced by 100. Okay? So this is the mistake a lot of people make in the beginning, but please make sure that one instance variable is created just once for one object. Okay? Now, after running the parent constructor, I come back again and then I print self.x and I get the output 100. You see, I am printing self.x from the child portion, but I'll still get the output 100 because there is just one variable x. এখন আমরা ক্লাস ভ্যারিয়েবল এবং লোকাল ভ্যারিয়েবল নিয়ে কথা বলি। ক্লাস ভ্যারিয়েবল এবং লোকাল ভ্যারিয়েবল কিভাবে ইনহেরিটেন্সে কাজ করে এটা আমরা দেখি। এই কোডটা আমরা রান করি এবং দেখি কি ঘটে। So at first I'm creating an object of the child class. So there will be two portions. So this is the memory location. Oh, sorry, before I create the object, I have a class variable x, which is 100. And this x is a class variable, cv, let's call it cv. And this x belongs to the parent class. So now let's create the object of the child. So it will have two portions, parent and the child portion or the own portion. So inside the parent portion, there is nothing. Inside the child portion, I have over here is a local variable. Okay, so I have a constructor. And inside a constructor, I have a local variable x. This is local because I am not writing self before it, plus it's being created inside the constructor. Then I print self.x. Now there's a question over here. I have not created any instance variable yet. Okay. Again, I have not created any instance variable yet. Then what should it print? The rule is if there is no instance variable created, then self.x will point to the class variable. Okay. So if I print this line, the output will be 100. So this parent class variable will be printed. Now, there is another concept, that is, I am currently inside the child constructor, or I am in the child portion. So when this line gets executed and there is no instance variable, the first thing Python does is checks for class variable that I mentioned, class variable of the child. So it first looks if the child portion or the child class has a class variable named x. If not, then go to parents class variable. Okay. So when I tried to print self.x, there was no instance variable. So it first tried to find out if the child class had a class variable named x, but the child class does not have any class variable named x. So it went to the parent class and found that there is a class variable named x. So it printed 100. Now in the third line, it's written self.x equals self.x. Remember, when there is an equal sign, the right-hand side is executed first, then the left-hand side. So if I look at the right-hand side, this self.x is nothing but the parent class's class variable x, which is 100, right? And the left-hand side is I am creating an instance variable x, and this 100 is being saved over here. So in this line, there will be a new variable, an instance variable x. And inside the instance variable, the value will be 100. In the fourth line, I have self.x plus equals 100. Now, as there is now I've created an instance variable x. So this variable will be updated, and this will be 200. Now, if I print self.x, I'll get 200 because it will access the instance variable I just created. Now, I want to print child.x. Now, I'm using the class's name. Therefore, I'm trying to find a class variable belonging to the child. Now, there is no class variable belonging to the child. So what I do is go to the parent class and look for a class variable named x. So I have over here 100. The output will be 100. Then what I do is I add self.x, which is the instance variable with the value 100, plus parent.x, which is the parent's class variable, which has a value of 100. Add them up, which is 300, and store it in the local variable x. So this local variable x will have a value of 300. Now when I print x, I get 300. So this is how variable works. I hope you've understood. In the following lectures, we'll do a lot of problem solving on everything we've learned so far. Thank you very much.